After 60, your body responds very differently to stairs and flat walking, especially in your legs, knees, and cardiovascular system. You can walk 2 miles on a flat sidewalk and feel fine, but a single flight of stairs can leave your thighs burning, your knees aching, and your breath noticeably heavier. Most people assume they're just out of shape and need more walking to fix it. But stairs and walking don't train your body in the same way at all. So why does a few steps of stairs change your legs so much faster than miles of walking? Let's start with something most people never consider. When you walk down a flat street, your body's not actually working very hard. It sounds wrong. It feels like exercise. Your heart rate climbs. You cover distance. You break a light sweat. You return home feeling you've done something productive. And you have, just not in the way most people assume. What your body is doing is falling forward and catching itself over and over again, using momentum to carry you into the next step. The ground never changes. The angle never shifts. Your legs find a rhythm. And once they do, very little has to change. It is one of the most efficient patterns in human biology, which is exactly why it feels so easy. Your cardiovascular system is working, but the actual physical load on your leg muscles is remarkably light. The same muscles that would burn intensely climbing a flight of stairs are coasting along at a fraction of their capacity on a flat sidewalk. Now put your foot on the bottom step of a staircase. Everything changes. The momentum disappears, the rhythm breaks, and your body is asked to do something it almost never has to do on a flat street. Generate force straight up against gravity from a dead stop to lift your body 8 inches off the ground. You have to fight gravity from an absolute standstill. There is no momentum to help you. Your body has to generate raw vertical force from zero. That burning sensation in the front of your thigh the moment you push up, that is your body calling on a completely different set of muscle fibers. Fibers that flat walking almost never touches. After 60, the human body begins trimming away anything it doesn't regularly use. And if you walk only on flat surfaces, the body gets a very clear signal. Vertical lifting is no longer part of your world, so it starts letting those fibers fade slowly. Without any obvious warning, the process doesn't happen overnight. It takes months and years. And because flat walking still produces a feeling of exercise, the heart rate rises, you cover a distance, you return home feeling you've done something good, there is rarely a moment that tells you what is quietly disappearing. The cardiovascular system is being maintained. The structural system is not, until the day you need to push yourself up out of a low chair or catch yourself before a stumble. And something that used to happen automatically now requires a conscious push. Now here is the part most people never think to ask about. If going up the stairs is so demanding on the muscles, climbing up must be the hardest part on your knees? It isn't. Ask almost anyone over 60 which direction makes their knees hurt more, and you will get the same answer almost every time: going down. Why? When you step down onto a lower stair, your leg muscles have to do something strange. They have to hold your full body weight against gravity while also slowly letting your knee bend. The muscle is trying to control the descent, fighting the pull of gravity the entire way down. On a flat sidewalk, you never face that demand. You never have to slowly lower your body weight under load. The ground meets you. You don't have to earn it. And because of that, the muscles responsible for braking, for decelerating your body against gravity, fade. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough that the braking system of your legs becomes less reliable than it used to be. This is why a stumble on an uneven sidewalk can become a fall. The engine is still there, but the brakes have worn thin. And this shows up in everyday life before a fall ever happens. Stepping off a curb feels slightly less certain than it used to. Descending a ramp requires a little more focus. Getting out of the back seat of a low car takes a moment of concentration you didn't used to need. These aren't random signs of aging. They are the braking system sending a signal that it hasn't been trained in a while. But here is what most people miss entirely. The conversation about stairs usually stops at muscle. But the joint itself is doing something that changes the picture. Deep inside your knee, the ends of your bones are coated in a smooth, white tissue called cartilage. This is what lets the joint move without grinding. But this cartilage has no blood supply, no veins, no arteries, nothing routing oxygen or nutrients into it the way the rest of your body is fed. So how does it stay alive? How does it remain thick and functional over decades of use? It depends entirely on pressure. Picture squeezing a wet sponge. Press it flat, release it, and it pulls water back into its center. Your knee cartilage works on exactly that principle. The joint is surrounded by a thick lubricating fluid. When the knee bends deeply under load and then straightens, the shift in pressure pulls that fluid into the cartilage, feeding the tissue. When you walk on flat ground, your knee bends roughly 20 degrees with each step. That shallow compression feeds the outermost layers of the cartilage. The deep tissue barely registers it. Step down a stair, lower yourself slowly into a chair. The knee moves past 90 degrees under your full body weight. That deep compression followed by the release as you straighten drives fluid all the way into the joint. Here is what is unexpected about this. The deep bending that feels uncomfortable and wrong is often the mechanical action the joint needs to stay nourished. The very thing most people avoid to protect their knees is often what the knee has been waiting for. You don't need to climb flights of stairs to create this effect. Even slowly lowering yourself into a chair over 3 or 4 seconds, rather than dropping into it, bends the knee past 90 degrees under load. That single habit, repeated throughout the day, is enough to start the pressure cycle the deep cartilage depends on. And this leads somewhere most people don't expect, because many older adults don't just report stiff knees, they report feeling less stable, as if their legs no longer fully trust the ground underneath them, as if something in the connection between the foot and the brain has become unreliable. The knee and this feeling of instability turn out to be more connected than they appear. You might know someone in their 70s or 80s who has reasonably strong legs. They can walk fine. They pass a basic physical, but they are unsteady. They wobble slightly. They grab for handrails even on a gentle slope. The strength is there. The coordination isn't. This is not a mystery. Inside your muscles and around your joints are sensory receptors, millions of them. Their entire job is to report to the brain. They fire a continuous stream of information about where your body is in space, how much tension is on each muscle, and the angle of your ankle at any given moment. Your brain uses that stream to keep you upright without you thinking about it. But when you walk only on flat, predictable surfaces, that stream never has to adapt. The brain learns exactly when the foot will land. It knows exactly how much force is needed. The sensory system narrows itself to one specific, unchanging environment. Then you step off an unexpected curb or your foot catches a loose stone. A burst of chaotic information floods the brain. But the pathways required to process that kind of sudden shift have been allowed to go quiet. The brain cannot respond in time. The body cannot catch itself. The ankle wobbles. The knee doesn't compensate fast enough. A fall happens. That is not weakness. It is the nervous system adapting faithfully to the environment you gave it. There is a simple way to notice where your balance system currently sits. The next time you step onto uneven ground, a grass lawn, a slightly sloped driveway, a single step without a railing, pay attention to whether your hand reaches for something automatically. That reflex, or the absence of it, tells you more about your balance training than any gym test. If the instinct is to reach, it usually means the sensory system has been living in a very narrow, flat world for a long time. Now consider what happens in someone who regularly moves in ways that require vertical displacement. A slow step up onto a stair, a controlled descent into a chair, standing on one leg near a counter, holding a gentle squat against the wall. None of these need to be intense. None of them need to leave you exhausted. The goal is not to tire the system. The goal is to keep the pathways active. But each one asks the body something flat walking never does. The foot wobbles slightly. The ankle adjusts. The knee shifts and corrects. Every one of those small adjustments is the nervous system staying sharp. The sensory pathways are being used rather than allowed to narrow. Over weeks and months, this compounds. The brain starts to receive a richer, more varied stream of spatial data. It becomes faster at processing unexpected shifts. The reflexes that catch a stumble stay sharp rather than slowly fading into disuse. The person who practices this regularly doesn't just feel more stable. They are more stable at a structural level in the wiring between foot and brain. Here's the part nobody tells you. There is a muscle deep inside your calf that changes everything about this picture. Underneath the larger calf muscle you can see and feel sits a flat, wide band of tissue. It runs deeper, it attaches lower, and it does most of its work in one specific condition: when your knee is bent. The moment you bend your knee, stepping up, lowering into a chair, descending a stair, the larger outer calf muscle effectively powers down. And this deeper muscle is left to hold the structural weight of your entire body on its own. This is why slow step-ups and wall squats feel so uniquely difficult in a way that regular walking doesn't. You are placing this specific tissue under a heavy, sustained demand that almost nothing about flat surface movement ever creates. And this is where it gets interesting. When this deep muscle is working under that kind of sustained load, it appears to pull fuel directly from the bloodstream in a way that flat walking doesn't trigger to the same degree. The contractions themselves open pathways that draw glucose directly into the working tissue without waiting for the usual signals that normally govern that process. That helps explain why 60 seconds of stair climbing can leave your legs feeling more work than 10 minutes of casual walking. The distance covered is not the measure. The direction is. It also helps explain something many people notice, but rarely connect to stairs. A short burst of stair climbing or slow step-ups after sitting for a long period often produces a noticeable sharpening of focus within minutes. The heaviness of staying still lifts, and the legs feel more awake. The body has just been asked to move fuel rapidly into working tissue. The system responds. The fog of sitting too long begins to clear. Now the bones. Most people know that bone density becomes a concern after 60. The conversation usually stops there, at the concern, at the risk. What rarely gets explained is the mechanism, how bone density is built in the first place, and how quietly it begins to change when the right kind of movement disappears from daily life. Bone responds to stress. The skeleton is constantly breaking down old tissue and building new tissue, but the cells responsible for building new bone are conservative. They only lay down fresh material when they detect actual structural load passing through the skeleton. Not cardiovascular effort, not steps counted, but structural load. The kind produced when a heavy muscle pulls against a bone, or when the skeleton has to absorb and redirect significant force. When you were young, you jumped, you climbed, you ran across uneven ground, fell, and got back up. All of that chaotic, high-impact movement sent signals through the skeleton that kept the building cells active. The bones were not just being used. They were being asked to reinforce themselves continuously. The skeleton was responding to a world that required it to be strong. Flat walking, for all its benefits, generates very little of that structural stress. The impact is smooth, repetitive, and predictable. The bones adapt to it, but they are not asked to reinforce themselves. The building cells receive no particular reason to be active, and the lack of that signal compounds quietly over years. Pay attention to this. Every time you push your body weight up a step, the muscles pulling on the bones during that vertical effort physically flex the skeletal structure in a way flat ground doesn't replicate. That bending, even at a microscopic level, signals the bone-building cells that structural reinforcement is needed. The skeleton responds to evidence of load. Without that evidence, the building process slows. The demolition doesn't. One final piece, the tendon. The tendons of the lower leg, particularly the Achilles tendon, are made largely of collagen. Over the years, those fibers can stiffen. The tissue loses hydration. The natural spring of the tendon becomes less elastic, like a thick rubber band that has sat in a drawer for years. It still functions, but it no longer absorbs and releases energy the way it once did. Flat walking stretches the Achilles only mildly. The ankle barely drops below the level of the foot with each step. For someone who has walked on level surfaces for decades, the tendon adapts to a short, shallow range of motion. It becomes rigid within that narrow zone, not through damage, but through adaptation. The tissue is simply reflecting the demands placed on it. Stand on the edge of a bottom stair, hold the railing, and let your heel drop slowly below the level of the step, then press back up. You are giving the Achilles a long, loaded stretch it almost never receives from ordinary walking. The cells inside the tendon respond to this kind of mechanical tension. Over time, that loaded stretch is one of the most direct ways to work against the stiffening that flat movement allows to accumulate. This matters more than most people realize. A stiff Achilles tendon doesn't just limit ankle mobility. It changes the way force travels through the entire lower leg, alters the loading pattern on the knee, and removes the natural spring that makes each step feel light rather than heavy. The feeling of heavy wooden legs in the morning, the ache after sitting too long, the way climbing a flight of stairs feels out of proportion to how fit you otherwise are. These get blamed on age, but in many cases they are symptoms of tendons that have simply adapted to an extremely narrow range of movement and have never been asked to do anything else. Here is the actual picture. Flat walking is irreplaceable. The cardiovascular rhythm, the fresh air, the mental clarity, these matter. This is not an argument against walking, but flat walking is not a complete mechanical diet. It keeps your heart active and your circulation moving. What it doesn't do is ask the legs to generate vertical force, brake against gravity, bend the knee deeply enough to feed the cartilage, or challenge the balance system with anything unpredictable. Those are a different category of demand entirely. One does not substitute for the other. After 60, the body watches for signals. It asks, do you still need to generate vertical force? Do you still need to brake against gravity? Do you still need to bend this joint deeply enough to feed the cartilage? If the answer it keeps receiving is no, it begins releasing the systems that would let you say yes. The burning in your thighs on a staircase is not a sign of decline. It is those systems firing as they are supposed to. They have just been asked to be quiet for a while. The fact that it burns is information. It means the pathway still works. The stiffness in the knee is not simply age. It is often a joint that has spent years absorbing only the shallow 20-degree compression of flat ground walking, never the deep loaded bend that drives fluid into the tissue. The joints stiffen quietly because the input it depends on was quietly removed. The wobble on an uneven sidewalk is not clumsiness. It is the sensory system that adapted faithfully to the environment you gave it. The chair you are sitting in right now, the curb outside your front door, the single step leading into your kitchen, these are not obstacles to work around. They are the tools the body responds to. If you want a simple way to start, you don't need a program. Once or twice a day, a sequence that takes about 2 minutes. Step-ups, 30 seconds, 1 foot at a time, pressing up slowly, lowering with control, chair lowering, 30 seconds. Standing in front of a chair, bending the knee until you just touch the seat, then pressing back up without dropping. The slow descent is the part that matters. That is where the braking muscles and the deep cartilage compression both get their signal. Single leg standing, 10 to 15 seconds on each side. That's the core, that's the whole thing. For the single leg standing, start near a counter. A fingertip of contact is enough. You are not trying to prove balance. You are asking the ankle and knee to make small, constant adjustments. Every tiny wobble and correction that happens during those seconds is the nervous system being used. The sensory pathways are firing. The brain is receiving spatial data it doesn't get from flat walking. Those micro-corrections are the training. Over days and weeks, hold longer. Move your hand further away, or briefly close your eyes. The progression is slow. That is the point. You are not building toward a performance. You are maintaining a system. None of this should leave you exhausted. The goal is not fatigue, it's exposure. A few seconds of genuine vertical loading, a moment of controlled descent, a brief balance challenge. That is enough to send the signal. The body doesn't need to be overwhelmed. It needs to be reminded. Within a week, most people notice better confidence stepping downstairs. Within a few weeks, the hesitation on uneven ground often starts to reduce, not because strength suddenly increases, but because the nervous system becomes more practiced at small corrections. Going up the stairs slowly without pulling on the railing, feeling your leg do the work, lowering yourself into the chair over 3 or 4 seconds, noticing the tension in your thighs rather than dropping into the seat, standing on one leg near a counter for 10 seconds, then 15, then longer as the weeks pass. These are not exercises. They are mechanical conversations with your own biology. And unlike a walk around the block, they speak directly to the systems that determine whether you stay structurally capable as the years go on. And the body, it turns out, is very good at answering when you ask the right questions. A few seconds of the right movement can maintain systems that hours of walking never touch. This video is for educational purposes only and reflects the biophysical mechanics of human movement. It is not medical advice. If you have joint pain, cardiovascular conditions, or other health concerns, please consult a physical therapist or physician before changing your movement routine. If this story changes how you view the stairs in your home or the curbs on your street, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the biological truths that time tries to fade. Strengthen your foundation. The next insight into your longevity will be revealed soon.